I'm doing well. I'm Allie. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm Elias, and I will be doing the consultation with you today. Um, for the consultation, I like to give everybody a heads up that we do record them just in case there's any information that you need from them to listen back to or anything like that. But that should have been out in the form and everything as well.
Okay. Oh, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can just go ahead and jump right into it, and then why don't you go ahead and uh, tell me who we're talking about today, what you're trying to work on with your dog, and everything like that.
Yeah. My dog's name is Roscoe. He is a 3-year-old golden doodle. We've had him, since he was a couple months old. He is a great dog. Overall, I feel like he has, we haven't really had any issues with him. The thing I do want to work on that I feel like he, has struggled with a little bit is resource guarding.
Okay.
It's kind of whenever we know the situations that will kind of bring it on. It's whenever I give him a high value bone or treat, or I'll give him like lick mats sometimes. And it's whenever those situations present themselves, when he has those things, if we get close to him, he starts to growl and tense up. And then he has if we have gotten really close or tried to take it away, he'll snap at you.
Okay.
So that's really what I want to work on more so, because we can kind of control our situation at our house, but it's like if we're in a new situation at someone else's house or they don't know that he has this issue, it's
Mhm.
more just preventing, bad situations in that kind of, setting.
Yeah.
Another thing that this isn't not as big of a deal, but I don't know if we can really do anything about this. He has a little bit of like sleep startle, which I think is a natural instinct, kind of like from what I've read. But if he is sleeping or in a relaxed state, and like it's not all the time, but sometimes, if someone tries to come up and touch him or pet him, he'll kind of like freak out, and he has snapped on people. So like I said, when we know him obviously. So me and my husband, it's been fine. But like he was with my mom last weekend and he wasn't even sleeping. But I think he was in a relaxed state and must have been somewhere that he, was kind of guarding the area.
Uh,
And he did bite her when she came up and just petted him.
okay.
So I don't know if that's really preventable or if it's more just like us making sure people are aware that he is like that in that
Yeah.
situation. But so more so the resource guarding, and if there is anything we can do about like the sleep startle
Okay.
aspect.
For that situation, with your mom, you said, right?
Yes.
Um, do you know any more specific details about like where Roscoe was, what he was doing, what the kind of situation was like?
So she was watching him. We were out of town
Oh,
and he was just sitting on the couch at her house.
okay.
And he has like a spot on our couch. He's actually sitting there right now where it's like his spot and it's like the longer part on the couch. That's where he always sits.
Uh,
So I think he was in that similar place on her couch.
okay.
And so I don't know if he was like guarding that area, but he really likes my mom and he's really familiar with her. So it was just kind of shocking. And she did say that he wasn't sleeping. He
Yeah.
was awake, but he might have been tired and just,
Okay.
yeah.
So has he ever had a situation like that where he is either having a specific spot that he is kind of guarding, or is there other situations where he can be anywhere, he just happens to be like kind of minding his own business and not wanting anybody to bother him?
That's happened too. Like
Okay.
and I feel like this started probably like, I don't know, a year and a half ago. He didn't always do this.
Huh.
So yeah, it's happened in like other spots too. But I notice it's like when he's extremely exhausted and has just had like a busy day and hasn't had the chance to like nap the entire day like he typically
Mhm.
does. So
Okay. What is your normal like response in that situation where he's going to make the decision to snap? Like what did your mom do? What would you guys normally do if you saw that?
I don't know exactly what she did, but my guess is she was probably just kind of like scared. I don't think she yelled at him or anything.
Yeah.
And kind of same thing, like we've done that when that's happened in the past. It's more like we're shocked, so we kind of like will walk away from him,
Okay.
kind of thing. We don't typically like scream at him or anything because I feel like I don't know if they really respond to that very well, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just kind of like he can always, I think, tell that he's done something wrong because he seems like very guilty after that, and he'll like come up to us and like, you know, try to like get pets and stuff. But I can tell he seems like he did something wrong, but
Okay.
you know, it's almost like he can't
Um,
control it in the moment.
and then as far as just general obedience stuff, how is
Yeah.
he like around the house, on walks with other dogs, if he's been around other dogs?
Yeah. He's a really good listener. I mean, he like, especially, you know, we can let him off leash at a park or something and he will always listen to us. He, you know, has pretty good recall. And then in terms of like other commands, he knows all the commands. I feel like he obviously does them a little bit more when there's like a treat involved.
Mhm.
Occasionally he'll do stuff without a treat. He's always good with
Yeah.
recall, but in terms of like some of the other, like, you know, sit, lay down, paw, that kind of thing, he likes to get rewarded for that. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. And then he's really good with other dogs. I mean, we're pretty, you know, we have friends that have dogs and he, you know, sees them all the time. And he's good on with, so he used to have like with when we would walk him,
Yeah.
he was a puller. And then we recently got or not recently, probably for the last year, we've had a lead or a harness that like clips in the front, and that's
Okay.
been like super beneficial for him, and we haven't really had any issues since then. He doesn't love that harness, but
Yeah.
it's helped his walking tremendously. So
Okay. Is there anything else like that you're having issues with or that you're wanting to touch on that's kind of outside of these things that we just went over?
no, I think that's really it. Like the resource guarding is the main thing. So
Okay. Um, Okie dokie. Well, I'll kind of go into a little bit about these different scenarios and everything where the resource guarding is happening a little bit.
mhm.
And then also I'll touch on the obedience stuff just a little bit because
Yeah.
sometimes having like a little bit more structured obedience for certain things can help with the behavior stuff
Yeah.
as far as just implementing a certain structure.
Okay.
Um, but at the end of the day, we wouldn't use obedience directly to address like behavior stuff. Behavior stuff is still its own thing.
Okay.
Um, so for the resource guarding, as I'm sure you already know, is just a normal dog behavior. It's gonna happen from time to time. My dog,
Mhm.
you know, I think he likes me, but he's gonna, of course, resource guard if I give him something that he is really wanting in that moment.
Right.
So it's it's nothing like personal to anybody. So whether he resource guards with you or another family member or somebody else, he's not thinking of it as like I'm mad at this person. It's just whatever's in front of him is just so high value in the moment. It's just
Right.
he's gonna do that. But
Okay.
the best that we would want to do is to give him some type of off switch to not have that response. So for example, when he's going to be chewing a bone, he's going to want to resource guard it when he's in the middle of chewing and if somebody comes up and bothers him.
Right.
But if we know that Roscoe is a big resource guarder, there's two things we would want to do. One is obviously make everybody aware, like, hey, he's chewing a bone, like let him have his space.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we can't necessarily just get rid of that thing in his brain where he's like, I really like this thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If that was the case, then he's just not going to chew the bone anymore. So
Right.
what we want to do is, you know, practice like safety with everybody who's going to be around him. Just like, hey, he's chewing a bone, let him have space. But then
Yeah.
we'll also want to implement some type of off switch to let him know that I'm going to come and reach for your bone. I'm going to take it away, but you have to just leave it alone. You have to leave the like that situation alone. So
Yeah.
with that, something that we usually do to start implementing it is implementing like an out command, but
Okay.
it's a little bit more structured to where it's not that I just want him to stop chewing it. I want him to completely like just leave it alone, like walk away from the situation. So if I'm
Yeah.
gonna come up and grab a bone from him, I don't even want him there like hovering, watching me do it because he's like 1 second away maybe from doing something. So we
Yeah.
let him know that, hey, if I'm gonna come up and grab your bone, you need to just completely remove yourself from that moment because I'm just gonna come up and take it. Everything's fine. You're gonna get it back, but I don't
Yeah.
want you right there.
Right.
So, that's a little bit more structured out that we would want to have for him to start
Okay.
addressing that. Does he
Yeah.
resource guard with his food in general, or is it only like really like high value, like bones and stuff?
I haven't noticed it really with his food. I mean, ever since I noticed the resource guarding, I've obviously tried to be careful around that. But like, I
Yeah.
can walk very close to him when he's eating from his bowl, and I've like, I've not reached in there, but I've put like other stuff in there while he's eating, and he never has really growled or even like acted like he's resource guarding in that situation. So I would say no. I can't say with 100% certainty, but
Yeah.
most likely no. And then it's more just with bones, high value treats, things of that nature.
Another thing that we would want to teach him is that it's not like assumed that he's gonna get anything that's basically falling on the floor for him or something like that.
Yeah.
It's more that we're giving it to him. So that way, for example, some dogs who are more intense with the food resource guarding, but
Mhm.
we would probably also want to implement in some way here with him, is that an exercise that we do sometimes is we're kind of dropping the food on the ground, but they can't just go and pick it up because they're going to resource guard it. So
Right.
it's letting them know that like just because there's food, just because there's stuff that you can have on the ground doesn't mean that it's just yours all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Um, so that's another thing too. And
Yeah.
then with that, having more control in those situations is going to help in the long run. But at the end of the day, we still want to let everybody know, like, hey, he could resource guard. So just give him his
Right.
keys. For example, with my dog, he was a big resource guarder when I first got him because I adopted him, and that was just something that he did to kind of like survive around other dogs.
I'm
Uh,
sure. Yeah.
so after working him through it and working with him, he's like, I can go and reach down and he's fine. But I know that if he has something he really wants and somebody starts to walk up to him, I know that he's going to get tense. I know that he's going to start thinking about like, what are they going to do? And
Right.
to avoid that situation completely, what I usually do is like, okay, I'm giving him a bone. Everybody just leave him alone while he's eating his bone. And then
Yeah.
done with his bone, okay, you can play with him now. And he's the friendliest dog, ever.
Completely. Yeah.
So that's kind of the mentality I would have with the resource guarding.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah, like I try to not obviously, I mean, right, give him bones even if people are over or that sort of
Yeah,
thing. Um, and we can put him in a room if we do want to give him a bone and we have guests over or something like that. So
yeah, yeah. That's exactly how I would think about it. And then I'll go more into the training itself, specifically, just after I go over the sleep startling stuff here.
okay.
Um, so with the sleep startling stuff, from the situation that you told me where he was on the couch, it almost
Mhm.
sounds more like still the resource guarding, but
Okay.
just that location where he was at. So
Yeah.
he, yes, he's probably tired. Yes, he wants to lay down on his spot on the couch. But to him in that moment, that resource of this is my comfiest spot on the couch,
Right.
that's like nobody's gonna move me, nobody's gonna touch this area. This is my like area. So in a way, he's still resource guarding. It's still the same thing that's going on in his head, but he's just guarding this area because it's like
Okay.
valuable to him.
That makes
So
sense.
that could have been what happened in the situation with your mom if he was caring enough about that spot.
Hmm.
For that, same thing, just adding in structure to it where I would make it to where he doesn't assume he can go on the couch. He needs permission to go to that spot. So
Okay.
that way one day maybe he's not just gonna hop up on the couch and then somebody just walks by and all of a sudden he's like mad at them and like snapping. So
Yeah.
if we're giving him permission, well, we're never gonna run into the issue where he's just, oh no, one day he's on the couch and he's gonna like attack somebody.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I know I'm gonna give him some couch time, so you could go up on the couch just like that. But then also having the structure to tell him basically off of the couch is
Right.
very big too, because now the couch is a privilege. It's not something that he's just like, this is mine. It's more
Yeah.
like, okay, when I'm on it, I should be on my best behavior because they can just go ahead and push me right off. Uh,
Yeah.
so that would be the structure implemented there. Same
Okay.
idea with the resource guarding is just letting him know that like this is not his, this is kind of like a privilege that he gets to
Right.
have. Um,
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah.
yeah, and then same thing, I would just like whoever's going to be like looking after him, or if you have like people over or something, I'll just let them know like, hey, like he's not supposed to be on the couch, but if you see him on the couch, don't like kind of like make it your thing, like just let me know, I'll handle it. um
Okay. Yeah.
just so that way nobody's trying to like move him if they're not sure how he's going to be, and you don't want anybody just kind of like doing something and maybe you don't even know he's on the couch and then all of a sudden something happens.
Yeah, right. Cause like, right, he's been in that situation where like we've had guests over and he's in that spot. And I'm just like, I get tense because I'm like, I don't want him to freak out on this person who has no idea that he has
Yeah,
this issue. So yeah, that's
exactly, exactly. So yeah, I would definitely um want to implement more structure there where it's just like it's assumed he doesn't go on the couch unless you specifically
yeah.
tell him like, okay, this is your time to go on the couch.
Okay. That's a good
um
suggestion. Yeah.
and then getting into more a little bit of like the training and everything. Are you familiar with the type of training that we do for our adult dogs here?
Yeah, with the e-collar and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I read about that. And then I didn't know this, but I texted one of my friends who had done the e-collar before, and I didn't know she worked with you guys, but she said she did and she had a great experience. So
Okay. Do you
she's,
know who that
I
was?
know. Emily Dillon, and her dog's name is Vinny. He's like a little Bernedoodle.
Okay, that might have been either with Jesse or Enrique.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, just wondering.
Yeah.
Um, for the e-collar, you said you did a little bit of reading about it. Do you know why we use it, how it's similar to like other tools, and kind of like what is your information on it so far?
So I think what all I've read and know from my friend's experience is just it's kind of a different way to communicate with the dogs. It's not supposed to like hurt them or anything. It's more supposed to be like, I think I read that, a mom, like the dog mom would,
Yeah,
bite them, if not bite them, but like physically do
yeah,
something as a sign to like this is not the right behavior to kind of correct them. So
yeah,
it's just more, instead of talking to them, it's like a different way to communicate.
yeah, yeah. So that's actually what you've heard, very like I guess good, in line with what we would say and everything. Where it is just another way of communication. And you were correct in saying it's supposed to simulate a dog bite. Obviously, it would never be to the degree of like a dog actually biting like Roscoe or something like that.
Right.
But when they're puppies, that's what the mom will do. The mom will go in for a nip. She
Hmm.
understands it's like she's not trying to like kill her children. It's
Right.
more just like, hey, like kind of like a slap on the wrist, like don't do that.
Right.
And there's tons of videos on YouTube too that you can look at if you're interested in seeing what all that looks like and everything. Uh,
Okay.
it's pretty interesting because as soon as she does a correctional bite on one, all the other dogs like no, they're like, oh, like this guy just got in trouble. I need to chill out.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I
Um,
guess that's like if you see a kid,
yeah,
get like a spanking or something.
yeah,
Oh
exactly,
God.
exactly. You can feel they know like the energy, like the tension kind of in the room.
Right. Right.
Um, But yes, exactly. It's supposed to give us a way of communication where I like to say like treats and everything like that are a way for him to say the word like yes to him. Whereas a
Hmm.
correction with the e-collar would be a way to add in the word no. So now we kind of have a more balanced way of saying things where it's like, I like that you did this. Here's this treat. I really don't like when you do that. So like, yeah, I'm letting you know that now.
Right. Okay.
And with the e-collar, um, very similar to other tools like a slip lead or a prong collar, where it's just adding in that physical sensation.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, if we yell at him, if we say words to him, he's not going to understand that. So we're just going to be wasting our own energy and creating stress that the dog's going to pick up on. Like they're going to know that it's a stressful environment and they're just going to be kind of confused.
Yeah.
Um, so with the e-collar, Jesse likes to say that it should never feel like an argument because we're not really arguing with the dog. We're just saying like, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do.
Yeah.
And dogs work really well when everything is very black and white for them.
Okay.
When they have gray area or when they have questions or when they have confusion, that's where they're going to start getting frustrated. That's where they're going to start doing the things like snapping or redirecting or having anxiety because they don't know what to do. So if we give
Mhm.
them very clear rules of like, this is good, this is bad, very easy for them to follow them because they know everything's going to happen like the exact same way every time, and they fit well into having that structure and that routine.
Got it. Okay.
Any questions with that?
No, that all makes sense. And that, like, was kind of what my understanding was. So that's helpful.
Yeah. So with the e-collar, we can both touch on the obedience stuff and just strengthen those up. Even though you said
Yeah.
you're fine with them, it's still nice to
No,
have
I think he
a
can
second
definitely
line.
improve. Yeah.
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 And then it's also a very easy way to start getting at the behavior stuff where we
Okay.
just want to address that outright. The way that I would think about obedience and behavior is yes, they tie in with each other, but a good analogy is obedience is going to be more like what you're learning in school and everything. So it's going to be stuff like reading, science, social studies, whereas behavior is going to be more like morality and like don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, where
Okay.
it's just something that this is like we don't want Roscoe to do. For example, the resource guarding. We don't want to have to tell him not to resource guard. We just want him to learn that resource guarding isn't good.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas something with like, let's say we're trying to get him to do recall. Well, yes, now we're telling him to do recall. It's not just assumed that he's never gonna walk away from us or something like that.
Right. Right.
Um,
Okay.
any questions with that so far?
No, I think, yeah, those two buckets kind of make sense and the differences there.
Yeah. So initially, with whatever program you end up doing, we always teach the dog heel first, just
Okay.
so that way they have an easy way to understand how the e-collar is working. So
Okay.
with the heel command, it's a very clear, visual, and easy to practice way for them to start learning the concept of moving with the e-collar, moving with pressure and everything like that.
Okay.
So, for example, it's good that your harness is working well, but we would even want to not have to rely on a harness during his
Yeah.
walk.
Yeah.
Um, and we want to get it to that loose leash level where we're never seeing tension on the leash. He should be walking at our side, his right shoulder in line with your left leg, and he shouldn't go past you, go behind you, or anything like that.
Right.
When you come to a stop, we also incorporate an automatic sit when you're stopping. So that way it keeps him in that good position. Not all of a sudden you stop and then he's just walking around.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That
Um,
makes sense. He would probably appreciate that because, like I said, he doesn't love this harness, but I think it is
yeah,
because it kind of like pulls at his front legs, if he goes in front of us, and
yeah,
that's what he wants to do. So,
yeah. And usually what we find is harnesses can sometimes create more frustration, even though they feel like they're giving more control. With harnesses, it activates something with dogs called opposition reflex. And people utilize this very well with like sled dogs and police dogs when they're trying to build that drive and that frustration,
mhm.
because it's on the strongest part of their body. It's encouraging them to pull because when they feel that pressure back, their first instinct is, I want to push into it.
Yeah.
So then it's creating this frustration because they're like, I'm pushing forward and you're pulling them back, and it can be confusing sometimes.
Yeah. I could see
Um,
that.
so with the harness, if it works well for people, then it's like it works well, that's fine.
Yeah.
But ideally, we don't want to have to rely on it because it's just going to eventually become like a nuisance in the future if he's like really getting frustrated.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so ideally, we could just do loose leash with the e-collar and everything like that. And then
Hmm.
the way that you'd be learning is with the e-collar, ours go from 0 to 127 as far as like levels of stimulation.
Hmm.
Now, it sounds like a lot of levels, but in reality, if you look at like another e-collar that maybe goes from 1 to 10,
Okay.
their 10 is going to be the same as our 127. We
Got
just
it.
have more in between to be very specific with everything because
Okay.
we've seen that, maybe on a 1 to 10 collar, a 5 is too much for a dog, but a 4, they don't even feel it. So now you're kind of like stuck.
Interesting. Yeah.
Whereas with the full like 127 levels, it's very easy to move in between, like maybe it's not 40, maybe it's not 50, but maybe it's 45, 46. So it
Right.
gives you a lot more wiggle room.
Okay.
So with that, we would in the heal command basically be correcting when he's outside of the heal command. So we're saying heal, and then we're walking, and obviously you'll go more in depth through all the steps and everything like in the program that you'll be in. But let's say he starts falling behind or pulling ahead, then we're correcting with the e-collar, and then when he goes back into position, no more correcting with the e-collar, so it's pressure on when he's kind of moving out of where he should be, and then
Hmm.
pressure off when he decides to move with it and come back.
Got it.
So
Okay.
now he's learning, okay, he's really the one in control of the e-collar. If he's going to pull and create this tension and go forward, well, the e-collar is going to turn on, and then when he returns back to the position he should be, e-collar off. So
Okay.
that's going to allow us to implement it into pretty much everything else that we need it for, and
Mhm.
including the behavior stuff. Because now he's going to know, all right, when I feel the e-collar, they want me to do something, so I need to figure out what I have to do. And
Okay.
once he understands that, now we can apply it to these different situations where even for the other commands like recall and everything like that, if he's far away and we are doing the recall command with him, he should feel the stimulation and think, okay, what do they want me to do right now? And then we would obviously help him out and teach him, okay, we need you to do this for recall. And
Okay.
there's more steps and everything, and we use the leash to help him out at first. But overall, the goal would be to get him to understand, okay, the e-collar is telling me to do this, so I'm going to do this. And then once we're able to practice that structure over and over again, we should be using the e-collar less and less as far as tapping and stimulation.
Uh-huh.
We're not having to correct him. He just knows, like, okay, they say recall, I do recall. That's it.
I
Uh,
see. Okay.
any questions with that so far?
No, I think that makes sense. I guess just to, I mean, and it sounds like you guys are very, you've probably done this with tons of dogs. Do you guys ever see like negative repercussions from using the e-collar or no? It's typically like they understand, eventually they figure it out and it's like, okay, like you said, when feel the pressure, that means they want me to do something kind of thing.
Yeah, in terms of things we can see with the e-collar, so at the end of the day, the e-collar is what is considered like a stressor because it's adding
Hmm.
something they don't like. So that's
Right.
obviously going to cause some type of stress. And what we will usually see is that dog's stress response. So we're not creating the stress response, but we're seeing what this dog is going to do when they get into a stressful situation, which
Hmm.
is obviously a good thing, but it's not something we like when it happens. So we it's beneficial to see what they're going to do in a stressful situation, because let's say when Roscoe gets stressed, he goes into like flight mode and he just runs.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's good for us to know, because maybe you're walking with him and it's like the 4th of July and maybe a firework scares him, and then you have him off leash or something, and then he doesn't care about the recall command anymore. Okay,
Hmm.
we know that flight mode is his stress response. So that's something we would want to work him through. So that way, a situation like that in the future becomes, okay, maybe Roscoe goes into flight mode, but we know that we can still get the command to happen and override that flight mode.
Yeah. Okay.
So, um, we will see some level of stress from him, and it's going to inform us of his stress response. But
Hmm.
our goal at the end of the day is to not just get him stressed and then leave him there. We
Right.
want to get not necessarily get him stressed, but get to that point where we're seeing the response and then moving past that to let him know,
Hmm.
like, hey, I know you're stressed right now, but we need to make you understand that you still have to do the command, you still have to follow through. Same thing with the resource guarding. Maybe when we start addressing the resource guarding, he's going to be stressed because he's like, well, I really want my bone. I don't want to let it go.
Right.
And maybe we might see him get very tense and then he's like not wanting to give it up. We would still want to push through that so that way he understands, okay, even though I really want my bone and even though I can like make this big fuss of it and like try and snap at them, it's not going to work. So I'm just
Hmm.
picking up the bone. And then
Yeah.
the next time should become easier because we're basically getting over that wall of like stress.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
over time, we should not see that stress anymore because it's like, okay, I know what happens. Like they want the bone, they take the bone, I'll get it back later, everything's fine.
Right. Right.
Um, but initially, we're pushing past that stress response, and if we're doing it correctly, it should get easier every time, is what we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the other thing that we may see is confusion at first because he's thinking like, okay, what do you want me to do?
Mm-hmm.
There, we wouldn't necessarily do like a stronger correction on the e-collar, whereas if we're trying to like override a situation, there we're trying to explain something to him. So we wouldn't increase the e-collar or anything. We would use the leash, drop the number down, do something to help him understand it. Because if he's confused, it's not fair for us to be harder on him. It
Right.
only makes sense to help him out. And then once he understands, oh, okay, you want me to do this. Okay, now you understand what you need to do. So yeah, there'll be correction like next time because now you know the rules. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. That definitely makes sense. Yeah. So it's kind of like a process, and
Yeah.
they seem to
Mhm.
figure it out over time, I'm sure.
Yeah, it takes time and definitely they're gonna experience some level of stress at the beginning because
Yeah.
nobody wants to be told what to do. Nobody
Right.
wants to have like discipline or anything. So their first response is gonna be like, what is this? I don't really like this. Uh
Yeah.
but
Right.
moving past that, once they get in the routine of the structure and everything, then it just becomes like second nature where it's like, okay, like we go for a walk, they say heel, I walk at their side, and then I get to go to the park and then I get to do this. So it kind of gets balanced out because of the freedom that we can also give them as
Yeah.
we trust the commands more. Because let's say you get the commands really good with Roscoe, well, now he can have full free time all the time, like at the park when he's off leash, because you know you have recall, you know you have heel, you know he's gonna listen, you know he's not gonna resource guard.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives him that extra freedom because you know at the end of the day you can still get him to do whatever you need him to do.
Right. Yep. Okay. That
Um,
makes sense.
any other questions with that area?
No, all good.
Okay. Um, as far as the resource guarding stuff and implementing the e-collar there. So when we're addressing behaviors that we want to kind of get rid of, um, we usually don't implement any command words or anything for something that we just want to kind of just remove from the situation there.
Mhm.
So for example, a good thing is a good example is barking. Some people like a little bit of barking for the like security. Some people
Mhm.
live in apartments where they can't have any barking. So the two ways we go about it are either control of the behavior or elimination of the behavior. So if they want to control the barking, well then we add in a word to say like, let's say this dog starts barking a little bit and we're okay with a few barks, but now it's getting excessive. So then they say something like stop or quiet. Well,
Mhm.
after they say that word, now if the dog barks again, then we correct with the e-collar. So it's basically like their warning. So then in the
Okay.
future, they're like, okay, I can bark, but when I hear them say the word stop, I'm going to stop because after that, the consequence will happen.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
if it's a behavior when we're trying to get rid of it, let's say, for example, they can't bark at all. Well, as soon as they start barking, then we're just going to follow up with consequence and no words
Mhm.
because we're letting them know that once they make the decision to bark, that's that's the consequence right there. We're not going to give them like a warning. So then in the future, they're like, I want to bark right now, but I know that when I bark, the e-collar is going to happen, so I'm not going to bark right
Yeah, yeah.
now. So with the resource guarding, a lot of it would be the elimination part because if somebody's going over by him and he's getting tense, well, we're going to correct that because there's no reason to get tense. Somebody's just
Right.
walking by you, it's fine.
Mhm.
And if somebody, for example, drops a piece of food in front of him, and let's say that it's like we do like a very like high value food source for him, and he goes over by it, well, we're going to tap because you shouldn't guard that. That's not yours. That just fell. Like you should
Yeah.
mind your own business there. And
Right.
all of that stuff would be without words because we don't want to have to be in a situation where somebody drops a piece of food, he goes over, guards it, then you say stop. Maybe you don't notice and you don't say stop right away. So he's thinking until you say the word, I'm okay
Okay.
to guard this.
Yeah.
So for things like that, it's just consequence right away.
Yeah.
For adding something in like the out command or getting him to go on and off the couch, where we're
Mhm.
adding more of that structure, then we can add in words where we could say, for example, we can use the place command for that spot on the couch. So
Oh
then
yeah. Okay.
you say place, he goes up on the couch and he could be on the couch and all that. But then maybe you say off, well, now he has to get off the couch. And if he doesn't get off the couch when you say off, then we're following up with the e-collar. So
Okay.
that way, maybe you have guests coming over and he's relaxing on the couch. Okay, now your friends and family are coming over. All right, off, no more
Mhm.
couch. And then he knows I shouldn't get back on the couch until they tell me place.
Got it. Okay.
So that's kind of the two sides we would be adding in for
Okay.
structure, and then the again default response of I'm not just gonna go guarding stuff because I want to.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Another thing to keep in mind is that if he's ever in a situation where he's resource guarding, um, once we start implementing the e-collar stuff, it will be important to stay consistent with it because when dogs start to get different outcomes at different times, they start to become kind of like gamblers where they're like,
Okay.
okay, maybe I'll try and resource guard this today and they'll let me get away with it. Or,
Right.
okay, I'm usually fine, but let's see, like, I don't think mom's going to do anything today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try and resource guard it.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's really just confusing for them then
yeah.
too.
Exactly. And one thing is that sometimes with the resource guarding, if like, let's say there's one day where he has a bone and you go to grab it from him and he's being a little bit resource guarding, you
Mhm.
would still want to do your best to follow through with the situation and not let him do that.
Mhm.
Because if we let him resource guard and then we just leave him alone, now we're kind of reinforcing it because
Okay.
he's thinking, oh, cool, like growling at mom and like showing my teeth or whatever, snapping worked. So next time if I want to keep my bone, I'm gonna try that and we'll see
Right.
if that works again.
Okay.
So I would recommend that like, once you start doing the program and everything, every time that you're going to put him in a situation where he could resource guard, where you're gonna give him that bone, that free time, I would
Mhm.
then just throw the e-collar on him so that you're prepared to address it in case anything happens. And then an added benefit would be that now every time the e-collar goes on, he gets a rewarding bone. So he's kind of thinking like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like I'm enjoying this bone, this moment here, and the e-collar
Yeah.
is on. So maybe the e-collar is not so bad.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
that's another way because we can always incorporate positive reinforcement stuff to it. Even
Yeah.
when doing the heel walking with him, he's walking with you nice. You stop, he does the auto sit. Okay, cool. Here's a treat.
Yeah.
Um, and that is the recommended way just because you're getting that balance where it's not
Yeah.
all discipline, it's not all treats, but that way so he's more neutral with everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Any
That
questions
definitely
with
makes
that?
sense, too. No, no, all good there.
Okay. Um, as far as the programs and stuff like that, was there anything that you were specifically looking at right now, or did you have like a certain desire to move one way or the other?
No, I mean, I think in terms of whatever you would recommend, like I said, the resource guarding is definitely the main objective, but I also don't think like he's definitely not perfect when it comes to the obedience stuff. So I think having some of that would be great too.
Okay. Um, for you, I would probably recommend doing one of the in-person
Yeah.
programs just because with the behavior stuff, it's always recommended that the owner is there to do it
Yeah.
like with the dog so that way they can see what that moment is looking like and they can be the ones to kind of control it because at the
Yep.
end of the day um, you're going to be at home with Roscoe and when he does the resource guarding so you will be the one who needs to have that like experience with him.
Yeah. And I would definitely prefer that to be in
Yeah.
person and,
Mhm.
work with you guys to see what you recommend. So,
Exactly. So for the program length, I would recommend at least 6 weeks, probably, just because
Okay,
you're trying to touch on some obedience and some behavior stuff.
okay,
Whereas 3 weeks would be too short, but I think 6 weeks would be perfect, depending on how far you want to take the commands. So,
okay,
um, some people just want to do like recall, heal, and like maybe place, and then the rest on the behavior stuff. Then
yeah,
that would be perfect for the 6 weeks. If
okay,
you're really wanting to like amp up the obedience commands more, or spend some extra classes on like sit and down and all that extra stuff, or like maybe
yeah,
incorporating a long leash to practice with that more, then you can go to the 9 week. But I think 6 week sounds perfect for you, and then
yeah,
9 week would be like if you really want to, but I wouldn't go past 9 weeks. I think 12 weeks
okay.
is too much, and you wouldn't use all the classes, so it'd be like a waste of money.
Yeah, I feel like 6 weeks sounds to me as well like what we should at least, start with here.
Yeah, absolutely. So with 6 weeks, the way that that would break down is, you would have, uh, the order might be subject to change a little, but the first class is always heal.
Okay,
And you would have another class for heal, but like more advanced, so that way you can like finish out the command, because we break it up into a few steps.
yeah,
And then another class for recall, so that's 3 classes for like your kind of basic commands there. And
okay,
then uh most likely at least 1 to 2 classes for the resource guarding.
got it.
And most likely at least one, maybe two of those will be in home, because
Okay,
if you're trying to work on the couch stuff and you're needing extra help with that or extra instruction with that, um,
right,
then the best practice would be in the home, because the issues are in the home.
totally, yep,
Then you have an extra class on the end, either if there's still more help needed with the behavior stuff, or if maybe there's something on the obedience side of things that you want to touch on more, or work on a different command or something like that.
okay,
And then keep in mind that, let's say after 5 classes, everything's fixed and you're happy with that. That last class you can just save for whenever in the future, maybe something comes up and you're wanting to work on something.
okay, got it. That's
But
nice then, yeah.
that's the structure roughly of what it would be, and like 6 classes sounds like it would be absolutely enough to hit all your goals and everything like that.
Okay, and how long is each class typically?
Um, Usually it's about an hour.
Okay,
Sometimes it could
wow,
be like an hour 15, depending on like what's being worked on, or if there's like um a reason that it needs to go over a little bit. But we usually stick to an hour. And
okay, cool,
the way that it works is it's gonna be 1 class a week, at a specific time that works for you. So like let's say Mondays at 4 o'clock, like work for
yeah,
you. So then every Monday at 4, you would be meeting with a trainer, either well, since the weather's nice, either at the park to work on the obedience stuff, or in home to work on that behavior stuff.
okay, got it.
Um, and then for the e-collar, you said Roscoe is he's just like a standard golden doodle, right?
Yeah, he's 50 pounds, so like medium
Okay.
size.
Okay. Yeah, since it's with the resource guarding stuff, and since he's like a kind of a medium to bigger guy, uh
Mm-hmm.
I will probably recommend the 1900S Black Edition by Dog Truck. Um
Okay,
and I will also have all of this sent into an email for you, just so that way you can have everything in one spot as well. Um,
perfect.
that is for technically large dogs, but we find that usually it's needed for behavior stuff,
Got
because
it.
behavior stuff is a little more like a little more difficult to work with dogs than just
Yeah.
the obedience stuff. Whereas
Okay. Makes sense.
a lighter collar can handle the obedience stuff, but we don't want to be stuck in a place where maybe he's resource guarding and this thing is so important to him. We're at a 127 on the collar and he doesn't feel.
Right.
So this will give you enough room to be able to be low if he's low, but then have that extra range just in case there's a situation where there's like an emergency or something.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Um, any questions with that stuff?
No, I think that definitely makes sense. All those details. So thank you.
Okay. So what'll happen now is I'll go ahead, get all this stuff into an email, send it
Perfect.
over to Jesse's assistant, because most likely I'll have you do that in person with Jesse.
Okay.
And his assistant Maria will start an email chain with you to get everything together, see what you're wanting to do, talk about payment plans if that's something you'd want to do,
Perfect.
and then give you all the information that you'll need as far as the program, the collar, everything like that.
Okay. Perfect.
You can also feel free to ask her any questions about anything really. If it ends up being like a training related question, then she can just ask myself or Jesse and we can get back to you.
Okay.
So if anything that was maybe forgotten during the consultation, just feel free to send it in that email chain and we can be in contact with you if you need any help with anything.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Especially, I don't know if my husband has any other questions that I
Yeah.
didn't touch, but yeah, I'll talk to him, and if he has anything, we can send him over. So
Okie dokie. So what I'll do is most likely she can send that email today.
perfect. I mean, yeah,
If
no
not,
rush.
yeah, if not, it'll be tomorrow, I think she will be in.
Okay.
We'll see when she's able to do that. But either way, was there any other questions or anything else that you would like to go over?
I think just two quick things. So, number one, just like round numbers cost, if it's not exact, like if you kind of need to talk through, that's fine. And then just number two, like in terms of timing for, starting the first class, and maybe Maria will be the one to kind of guide me on that, but just
Yeah.
scheduling.
So let me go ahead and just pull up this here. So for the timing, it depends on Jesse's schedule. I don't think he's particularly busy right now, so it should be pretty easy to set something up
Okay.
quickly if you're trying to do something soon. Um, and then uh, as far as so what I would do for that is I would in the email chain let her know your kind of planned timing of everything, and then she'll be able to like
Okay.
what works or what's closest to that time.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
then as far as pricing, let me just see if we have because she can send you a whole like breakdown of everything, but what I'm thinking is it's probably let me see. Okay. So most likely for the 6 week with Jesse, it's probably going to be around $1,400.
Okay.
Uh I believe that that is our current pricing. There might be what is it? Maria will let you know if there's any like discounts or anything that are happening.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure with that.
Yeah.
Um,
No, round numbers is just helpful. That's fine.
yeah, roughly I would plan maybe like $1,400. It could be like even possibly a little less, but we'll
Okay.
see. Because based on the in-home as well, I think that changes the price, but if anything, it would most likely lower it a little bit. So we'll see.
Okay. Cool. No, that's helpful just as a ballpark for
Yeah.
now.
But I'll have her send you like a breakdown of like all the pricing stuff too, just so you know everything, how everything is laid out.
Okay. Awesome.
Um, but any other questions other than that?
No, this has been extremely helpful, and thank you very much for your time. I appreciate even just the guidance you gave me during this session. So it's
Yeah.
really helpful, and I'm excited to hopefully get started.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, it sounds like you guys will have a very successful program. You
Yeah.
seem like your understanding of like his issues and everything like that. So that's always a good way to start off. Uh,
Yeah.
and then for the time being, just to avoid any resource guarding issues until you start the training, I would just recommend if you're going to give him a bone, just continue doing what you're doing where it's going to be somewhere else away from everybody, just so you
Hmm.
don't have to worry about anybody maybe running into an issue with him.
Right. Okay.
And then as far as the couch stuff, If you're fine with him being on the couch for now and like you know that nobody's gonna bother him, that's fine.
Okay.
And then you can get more into working on it once the program starts and everything.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. At this point, I'm not even gonna, he loves the couch, so I'm not gonna attempt to try to figure it
Yeah,
out myself. I'll just wait. But
yeah, I wouldn't worry about it right now.
yeah, yeah. So,
Okie
all right. Well,
dokie.
thank you so much, Elias. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Just keep an eye out for that email, and
Okay.
then I look forward to seeing how your program goes.
All right. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
All right, you too. Bye bye.